Welcome to Dear Business Coach, the podcast. My name's Elizabeth. Find one thing to move your business forward today with conversations, spotlights, interviews, articles, and free resources. Listen and follow and subscribe on social media. Dear Business Coach pages and groups. Dear Business Coach podcast. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and don't forget Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, anywhere you listen to podcasts. All it takes sometimes is one little thing to move your business forward today. Ooh. Awesome. Well, here we are, and welcome back to this show. Francine Binns, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me back, Elizabeth.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I know that it's been a little while since we've talked. Now, you also know, Francine, that I have spoken about you before. So the first time that you and I had an interview, I learned some really valuable stuff about you, and you shared some very fun stories. And I was more than impressed with the way that the interview, you came right on out and shared some vulnerable stuff, and I'm not even sure if everything that you shared on that interview we planned for exactly. So one of the things that I always like to say about your interview, which I brag about that interview during podcasting workshops and LinkedIn Live audio sessions. So thank you for that. I know that probably it would be worth mentioning that your first episode was last year. So it doesn't feel like that long. And today I'm catching up with you a little bit. You have your own podcast and you collaborate with another person on that podcast. And that is what I was so curious about, is how you figured that out and how that works for you. Here on the Dear Business Coach podcast, it's just me, and I love the interviews, and that's my favorite part of my job. However, being able to collaborate with other folks who act as a host or act as a collaborative partner is fascinating. So let me stop. And Francine, well, how are you introducing yourself these days?
Well, how am I introducing myself these days? Well, these
Mm.
days I am, actively pursuing my master's in social work because my aim is to be an active therapist. So a licensed therapist, that's the part of social work that I'm most interested. But I am also very much interested in the macro aspect of social work, the nonprofit side, the advocacy side of social work. And that's me these days. That's me these days, moving on a little bit from entrepreneurial, but not totally. To, focus on doing individual therapy because it was my first love, and I'm going back to my first love of therapy. So that's me these days. And yes, the podcast has been I didn't think of it at first as being an integral part of my career development. It was really a labor of love that two people who were very passionate about mental health and reducing some of the stigmas associated with mental health and increasing the awareness of it, and the importance of keeping yourself mentally healthy in general,
Mm.
and talk about, just things that people go through on a daily basis and how that affects us. That's been a labor of love, and both of us came together doing that based on the fact that we wanted to advocate for mental health.
Hey, listeners, don't forget to subscribe to email if you haven't already. Do this at dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. And if you are a new subscriber, look for the magazine coming up. You can get a free download as a new subscriber. That's dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. Thanks so much, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Remember, you are a superstar.
Well, that is something that came up in our recent meeting is the advocacy piece for you.
Mhm.
So I don't think that it's terribly common that we get to hear from folks who are in the therapy world and have experience in the business world. That is a perspective that you have, that being able to talk about it, being able to be here on a podcast and just to share that that was the case for you is something in and of itself. uh it's let me say that it sounds like the kind of thing that somebody would say, oh, you can't do that. Why would you do that? That's not, that's not only going to be difficult for you as an individual, but here's all the reasons why you shouldn't. You can't be interested in both of those things in one lifetime. It doesn't make sense.
Make it make sense, right?
so so what you've done, though, by sharing your experience is acknowledging that, and sharing with other folks, including myself, that these are all important things for us. And so you are not afraid to share your experiences and to say, well, I did go into business, and you know what, I that was important, and now I'm going back to therapy, which is my first love, and that's okay too. So do you feel that do you get questions like that? Do you get people in your network circle or family who are wondering about this pathway?
Sometimes, but people in my network, they know that I have multiple passions. I've always had multiple passions and interests. And my I think growing up, it was expected of me to go into business because
Mm.
my family, that was their thing, business. My mom was a restaurateur. My father was a developer, so he was, building and selling houses and apartments and things like that. And I grew up in Jamaica, and so professional pathways are, it's limited because we're very small. It's like barely 3 million people. It's we're a tiny island, it's barely 3 million people. And so, there are limited spaces for teachers, lawyers,
Mm.
doctors, and, different career paths. The companies, major companies are, they can only hire so much. And one of the major industries when I was growing up was bauxite. And that has ceased for quite some time now, and they were hiring many, 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 many people. And then it became now call centers are the ones that are hiring some of the
Mm.
young people coming out of school. So in Jamaica, if you're not choosing to do one of those traditional career paths, it's opening a micro or small business. And that's the way that you earn a living. So it's not strange for me to have this, business entrepreneurial mindset. But when I was in school, I became curious about how the mind works because I was a reader. I read every day. There was a bookstore by my mother's restaurant, and coming from school, she would have to buy me a book every day. She was like, "Oh my God, there's a whole library donating books and stuff like that." So I was a reader, and I became curious about how the mind works. And I started in college first doing a business program, and then I switched to psychology. And It was my love of therapy and psychology. But when I went back home, mental health was very much stigmatized.
Hmm.
And so I started a support group for people with mental health disorders because I wanted, people to have a way that they could speak with other people who had the diagnosis. And that way they have support in feeling that I'm not alone or this is not so strange. But it became a challenge to find places to host the meetings. And this was not necessarily the time where Zoom was, Zoom became a thing after the pandemic, during the pandemic. So it was not really a thing to have like online meetings and things like that. But because of the stigma, people were like, you know, um, I think it's dangerous to host the meetings here. We don't know if they're gonna destroy the place. And so it became a chore to kind of explain that, mental health does not mean that someone is violent and they're going to, but that's how it was seen at the time. And
Wow.
it was a struggle and I needed to pay bills.
Yeah.
So I went back into business. And after doing that for 10 years and feeling, that I was running a franchise, and of course, being in a franchise, you're limited to, the growth is open more branches. I didn't want to do that.
Mm-hmm,
I mean,
mm-hmm.
I had had enough. And I think the people aspect of the company that I was franchising for, they did not value us as retailers. I did not feel valued as a retailer, and other retailers did not feel valued as retailers.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought business includes people. Your staff are people, and your customers, your clients are people. And you cannot remove that aspect from business. And including that aspect in business, taking care of people emotionally and mentally means that you profit as a business. And so I decided, you know what? I really want to go back into mental health. And that was born. And I started the podcast. It's been over a year now that we're doing the podcast, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so I have lots of questions. Thank you for sharing. Some of them I can't do all at this time. That's amazing. I didn't know your background, so that was very some of those details were new to me. So thank you and fascinating. And it's wild that you uh how you obviously it's not wild, but you were drawn to psychology and thinking about therapy and how the mind works. So that was all you and your personal interest and picking up books and being curious for yourself. So I was asked a question recently at a workshop that I hosted last week. Why? What is it about podcasting that is so great or whatever? And that's a fair question, and it's a business workshop, and so people are thinking, well, we must be thinking about profit. We must be thinking about how does this actually physically contribute to a sale. And I think that's what the gentleman was kind of thinking about was, I don't how does a podcast actually translate into that moment when a customer signs a contract with me? And of course, it was a debate. It was a healthy debate question, and the ability to allow that question and the ability to say, you're right, your perspective is, for you to think about a sale in your business. And I am thinking, I am talking about abstract things, podcasting. How is it helpful? What do you do with the podcast? And um, that why brings me to the advocacy. And I am listening to you right now talk about your experiences, and it's making me feel a certain way. I am relating to you. I'm picking up things that I can already tell are going to help me later today, later this week. I mean, I think about Francine and the things that she said that she's been through, and the outside forces that helped form your choices too. And so advocacy, um, you're probably a great person to talk about, what happens to us when we're able to listen to somebody else's story. Maybe that I
It,
should just ask that. Yeah.
because when you get to relate, it's the human side of things, the connection side of things. And I think we're really missing that these days. Sometimes, we're going through our challenges and we often think that we are alone in these challenges. We often think that I'm in my 40s and I'm going back to school. And so, hey, I can say, hey, I'm a college student, right? I'm a college student, but it doesn't negate the fact that I was a business owner for a very good chunk of my career. And it did not mean that I had to stay a business owner for the entirety of my career. Or it doesn't mean that I can't pivot or evolve into something else. And so, me speaking about it, maybe there's somebody out there who hates what they're doing right now, or feels like, you know what, I feel like I need to do something different. And I don't know, maybe it's too late for me, maybe it's ridiculous for me to change at this point or something. But then you can listen to somebody who says, hey, I'm doing it. You can do it too, right? And so you become more human. And even as a business, people we like stories. We like stories. We like to understand, if I hear the story of how my favorite brand was started and I can relate to that brand and I can connect to the human side of that brand, the people of that brand, and say, wow, I really like that story. It touches me in this way. I become a stronger supporter of that brand, right?
Hmm.
Like I said, you cannot remove the people aspect from the business aspect. They're not mutually exclusive. They have a symbiotic relationship that we cannot ignore. And I feel that too many businesses are looking too much at the figures on paper and ignoring a very important aspect that goes with that, and it's the people that work for you and the people that are coming to purchase from you. It's easy. You can see many brands that, their sales dropped tremendously when people started to say, hey, I don't like what you're representing right now. We saw that recently with, I think it was Budweiser. And the
Uh-huh.
drop like, woo, because people were saying, hey, what are you doing? I don't like this. And
Hmm.
they started to protest it. And they had to revamp how they were connecting with the audience. And that's what marketing is, how you connect with people and how you influence the narrative of how they see you.
That is a fantastic definition. And what happens in your podcast? So your podcast is Balance and Bloom, and you have a co-host, and I asked you as well recently, what is that like? Because that seems like a lot of fun for you. You guys created a partnership together for this podcast, Balance and Bloom.
Yeah, yeah, it was. And It, I'd like to say it's been a really fun experience because we're both passionate about mental health. We both respect each other's boundaries. There was a recent episode coming up, and we had to decide how much we were both comfortable discussing a certain topic and not bringing up things that would, would make either one of us kind of vulnerable or not vulnerable, but put in a compromising position then. So vulnerable, right? And we were both able to mutually work that out in a way that worked out for both of us because we, respect each other as individuals. And the relationship, for me, how I work as a team member, how I work with others is I like, people to do what they are good at and what they love doing and what they excel at doing. So I feel that works out the best for me and that works out the best for other people in the team. If you do what it is that you love and what it is that you're very good at, because when you do that, you're going to do that without complaint and to the best of your ability. And so one of the things that we wanted to work out is should we go live with our podcast or do the recording?
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, I do not like to edit. I do not like to edit videos. I do not like to do that stuff. And it feels unbalanced that you're editing, right? And she's like, but I love to edit. She's like, I love to edit. And I like to take out the fillers, like the ums and the ahs and the background noises.
Mm.
And I was like, okay. I'm fine with doing live, just so you know. It's just that I'm terrible at editing. I cannot do it. We would never get an episode out because it would take me weeks to do one section of the editing because I'm not good at it. Don't like doing it. And she's like, I like it and let's keep the recording. And I was like, fine, okay. So it worked out because she likes to do it. She enjoys doing it and she wants to do it. And so it removed that from me where it felt a little bit imbalanced. And so I like reaching out to people and I do that like um reaching out to the guests or the guests reach out to me that come on the show and thinking up topics. We both flesh out topics, but I like to do that as well. So there are aspects
Mm.
of the podcasting that I like to do and that I'm good at, and I do that. And she likes to do that part and she does that. And so it balances out. So we come and we meet for a podcast, but it takes a life of its own when we start talking, which it always does. Never works out as we planned it. It just takes on a life of its own as we start to discuss the topics. And we've had some great guests, and it's been fun, and exciting talking to them and hearing what they're doing and their opinion. And not all of the guests are mental health experts at all.
Mm.
They're
Mm.
entrepreneurs. They're people getting, everybody has mental health is important to everybody. And so we like to talk to people who not necessarily have a diagnosis, but take care of their own mental health. We spoke to the founder of Go Brunch, and his story was that Go Brunch was founded because they were doing remote work and they wanted a more inclusive space where people felt like they belonged because belonging was very important to him. And so that's how it was founded. And
Oh.
so, yeah, it came from him feeling like a bit isolated, moving to a new country and feeling out of place. And then here comes his company, Go Brunch.
That is a cool story, and that is a very cool story, and that is not, that's I venture to say he probably had the chance to share that with you on your podcast in a way that maybe he hadn't been able to on another space before.
Yes, that is true because we were really we're focused on the mental health piece, but it doesn't have to be experts because everybody, like I said before, has um have to take care of their mental health. And even if you're not thinking about it in that way, when we talk to you, it begins to be okay, that's what that is. And that's the
Right, right. And I don't mean to laugh to be disrespectful. I'm laughing because that's how I process things too, right? We get to talking and then I say, oh, now hearing myself say it.
right? Exactly. That's therapy.
That's therapy.
That is therapy. That's why
Mm.
I personally recommend everybody should have a therapist. And it's not because I'm going into the profession. It's because that's what we do. We hold space. So you can process things in a way that you would never process it before. And in a non-judgmental setting, unbiased, non-judgmental setting. And we all need that. We all need that. We all need to go, we'd love to have this space where somebody is actively listening to you, actually hearing you, and you can say things in a way that, you have this aha moment and things begin to change.
Right. Well, you actually you bring something really important to the idea of business, which is what you're saying is that mental health is important for everybody. And when you say that you want people to, feel okay with sharing. You said stigmatized. You said you've been in spaces. You said in Jamaica, this mental health idea of mental health, maybe even using the word, mental health advocacy is stigmatized. And so much so that you were confronted almost with the objection of, oh, I wouldn't want you to have a meeting in my building because they're mental health people. This must be dangerous for me to allow this meeting to take place. And that's probably happened. That idea, that just that thought of what is mental health. It comes along with judgment, or comes along with fear. And it's interesting that you are put your for your for, forcing the you're forcing us to look at it, to say it's actually the opposite. It's not what you what we we would you just said, without judgment and processing in a way that you wouldn't have the space to process somewhere else. That is the fear, right? Is that if I'm dealing with a mental health issue, that equals bad, that equals something that needs to be judged, that equals something that needs to be treated. And how can I treat that if I don't clinically judge it in a way, right? It's unhealthy. So that's the judgment, and at least at that level. And so I need to get to a place where it is healthy. So why can therapy be helpful for business people, do you think?
Well, burnout is a real thing now. It's a buzzword that's going around in businesses and employee turnover because people are stressed out, and stress is a part of mental health. And so if you have a business where people do not feel psychologically safe, then you, as the entity, you're missing out. You are
Mhm.
missing out on the potential of this person. You're missing out on them giving you their best. And I think I spoke about this in our last episode, where this is what I used as my competitive edge in
Mhm.
my business. and it was taking care of the staff because the staff was taking care and the direct contact for the customers. And so if they were frustrated, they're going to naturally translate that frustration to the customers who are coming and having
Mm.
money in the business so I can pay the bills and pay them, right? And so that's why I decided, okay, let me create this space where they can have space to decompress before coming back to work, where they can have a space to say, okay, you know,
Mm.
I also have a family. I have kids. I have to go to PTA meetings. My kids get sick. Um, they have things that they want me to be there for them with. And if I created this space where, because many of my staff members had children, and so if I created a space where they can be there for their families and also earn some money, then, and it worked out because they were able to give, and it was, and let me tell you, that business was quite, you had to be people were in your face every second. It was like nonstop, nonstop, people
Mm.
coming nonstop. And so because
Mm.
I'm providing what do my customers need? And I knew I went into a business I knew nothing about. I had no idea how it worked,
Oh.
right? And so what I had to do was tap
Mm.
into my psychology training and say, all
Mm.
right, if I were coming to purchase this product, what would I need? What would make it the best experience for me? And when I understood what they needed, then I translated it to, okay, what do I need for my staff so that they can be at their best when they are dealing with the customers? And my thing was flexible timing and giving
Mm.
you space to decompress. And so that was my thing. I had to set the schedule in a way that was never done before. I had to try to process the time so that they're earning, but also having space for themselves
Mm.
and providing what my customers needed so that they're getting the best experience when they came. And so what happened was the people who came to my location, they came because of the experience that they knew they were going to get. Not that I'm not selling anything differently. It's
Mm.
not priced differently. It's because I made it convenient for them. I started to open before everybody else because I was like, okay, there are lots of people that are going to work at 8. Nobody else is opening at 8. So I'm going to create this space where they can get what they need before they go to work. And so it was using the psychology of how am I giving the best to my customers and also the best to my staff simultaneously. And
Well, and you're so right about that. I'm sorry, keep going.
go ahead, go ahead.
Well, so right. So when you say that the goal is to have your staff be the best that they are, when the customer comes and when the customer comes, right? So staff is positioned uh, in the way that they are given the space to be their best and are the best at that time when the customer comes. That's crazy. That sounds impossible. You said that you built your. This is actually almost secret proprietary information, if you will, for what you just dropped there, as far as within the paid schedule, within the paid time, that that someone in your team, that we have the ability to, whatever that looks like, have a few minutes to decompress, is the word that you used, because your business was such that customers, are needing something from you all the time. It is a demanding position to be a team member in that business at that time. So on paid time, whatever that space looks like for your staff to have a decompression. That is really, really powerful and a huge distinction, because I, I've felt that so often, if not almost all the time, is your professional training is, when I come to work, be on, be ready to work. Personal things stay behind. And there is a reason for that a little bit, right? If you're thinking about an argument you had privately at home, don't bring that to work. However, that space and time for you individually to recognize that I am allowed to decompress. I am allowed to take space between, whatever the issue, whatever the experience was an hour ago, and now I want to give my time to my customer, and that is worth acknowledging hugely. So did your employees understand what you were doing?
Not 100%, no.
Yeah.
Not 100%. For me, I thought it was like easily understood. Like, I can
Mm.
understand this. But then I recognize that, okay, I'm coming from a therapeutic perspective. I studied psychology. I was simultaneously doing social work with a company that I would go and worked in a way that I had never worked before and that I had never seen done. And so decompressing was very much a part, self-care was very much a part of what we were doing. Decompressing was very much a part of what we were doing. But I realized that it's not something that people understand. It's not something that people understand because we have the philosophy, no pain, no gain. Hard work pays. I was speaking to my friend this morning and it's like, she asked me, oh, do you have time? I was like, I am doing something, but I'm all about the breaks. I'm all about the breaks because I know that when I take my mini breaks, I come back with my best self. And so I was like, listen, I'm a, I'm all about smart work. That is my thing. It's smart work. And so we do have the mindset of no pain, no gain, only hard work pays off. And I'm not saying you shouldn't work hard, but I'm saying there's a smarter way to work hard. And I'm saying that we cannot ignore our mental health. It's just like if you have a car and the car has the engine, you can't ignore what's going on in the engine. You have to make sure that it has the radiator is taken care of, or else it overheats. You have to make sure that it has the engine oil and all that good stuff. I'm not a mechanic, but all the good stuff
Yeah.
you have to do, check regularly in your engine to make sure that it's going. And that's a machine, right? And our brain is our engine, and you cannot ignore what is going on there. You cannot ignore it because you run into issues. You run into issues like burnout. You run into issues like making a lot of sloppy mistakes at work because your mind, you have not had a chance to decompress. You've worked 9 to 6, you travel 2 hours back and forth to get to work. When you get home, you have all that home stuff to do, and there is no time to decompress. You have no time to process what's been happening in your life. And so you just keep going, 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 going. And what happens is you start to overheat like the radiator. And then what happens? You have to pull over and the car has to go into the shop and you have to get it fixed. But if you were checking the water level in your engine, you wouldn't have overheated, right? And so you did not want to stop. You wanted to keep going, but the car says, I can't go any further. And
Yeah.
so you are now forced, and this is what happens. You're forced into doing what you could have been doing throughout and taking care of your mental health because it's important. And, there are many, many ways that we can take care of our mental health, and one way does not work for everyone. And
Mm.
so you have to figure out you and do what's best for you. You have to take care of you. Otherwise, you're gonna overheat. You gotta be towed off the side of the road.
Yeah. That is a really good analogy. That is a really, really good analogy. I like the car analogy. I do share in some of my business groups that I do have a counselor, and I do regularly go and sit with someone and with what I guess is considered traditional talk therapy. And I find it tremendously helpful. So it's obviously I'm a little biased because I already find benefit. But that wasn't true last time we were talking, though. Last time you and I had a recording, I hadn't met that person yet. I hadn't met my therapist yet. So um, I would probably want to make sure I get to connecting with you online. Make sure that Francine Binns, you go follow Francine Binns, connecting with Francine on LinkedIn. And that's something that I try to remember to help everybody with, including myself, is don't forget when I'm looking at someone's profile, if I want to be able to talk to you, if I want to be able to DM you and say hi, I need to be connected with you. I can follow you, but that extra step is how we can actually have a conversation at some point. And Balance and Bloom is the podcast, and that is, what I wanted to also uh, get to before we wrap up is the Balance and Bloom podcast is available on major streaming platforms. So I can find it on your LinkedIn profile and I can access clips and look at and get to it there. However, I can also subscribe or follow and add it to my list on like Spotify, for example, right?
Yes, Spotify, Amazon, Apple. Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. And so what releases I can look for are, how often do you release that, on a weekly basis?
Every 2 weeks.
Every
So
two
like,
weeks. Okay. Well, and you guys, what's great about that podcast, what are you I wouldn't know that you guys actually have different jobs. It's very interesting to listen to the two of you talk because it sounds like you just kind of are on a phone call and you guys get together, and I mean that in a good way, right? If you just it's like you guys found each other in a room and we just wanted to talk about this thing today. And you said that your guests find you most of the time. Is that true?
yeah, that is true. We did not go out actively seeking guests. They found me on LinkedIn. And after that, I say, hey, interested in being a guest on your podcast. And we have a meeting with them and see if it's a good fit. And most of the time, like, there is only one person who could not be connected with the mental health space, and he provided us with a beautiful song, background music for our podcast.
Oh.
Yes, it was beautiful. He created it based on, what he felt our show represented, and we loved it was great. And it felt good to be, to have that and have that interpretation of us based on his music and stuff. But like I said, most of our guests have not been mental health professionals or persons who have a mental health diagnosis. And most of them are a lot of them are CEOs, entrepreneurs, doing their thing. And
Mhm.
one, Stanley Green, one of our guests, his new venture is resilience.
Mm.
He does resilience training and has his power thinking meetings. I'm a part of the power thinking group, and that's how we met. And his training is all about how to have resilience in the workplace, because as a CEO, he also had a powerful story that he shared on his podcast, which was similar to the techniques that I used. in my business. And so this is his new space that he's doing. And so we've met great people. Some, yes, we have actively asked to be a guest, like I asked Sandy Green to be a guest. And some found us via LinkedIn and requested to be our guest on the show.
Wow. Well, that is a testament for sure. So, well, Francine, thank you for coming to the Dear Business Coach podcast today. And I hope that when I listen back to this, I remembered all the things I wanted to ask you. But I really appreciate your time. And this is an honor to have you back. You're what's called an original key player of the Dear Business Coach podcast. And look out too for your magazine, this article. So this episode in the next quarter after this is released will be a magazine article about the episode, and of course the episode will be included in the weekly email to our subscribers. And so I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Oh, yeah, I can say that it's the weekend.
It is, right? Went by so fast. Thank you so much for having me back. It's a pleasure, and I'm so glad that my story had, an impact on you. So thank you. Thank you.
Feel so. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. All right. We'll talk to you next time.
Right, Elizabeth. Have a great weekend.
Bye, Francine. Thanks, you
Bye-bye.
too.
Hey, listeners, don't forget to subscribe to email if you haven't already. Do this at dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. And if you are a new subscriber, look for the magazine coming up. You can get a free download as a new subscriber. That's dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. Thanks so much, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Remember, you are a superstar.